coffee with the District 22 legislators. My name is Michael Held. I will moderate this morning. These are organized by the Governmental Affairs Committee of the Huron Chamber and Visitors Bureau, and we have several members of the committee here. If you just raise your hand. So refreshments are provided by the AARP of South Dakota and the South Dakota Farmers Union. Our timekeeper this morning will be Lori Shelton, the President and CEO of the Huron Chamber and Visitors Bureau, and she will try and keep us on schedule a little bit. If I might ask, please check your cell phones, put them on silent or vibrate or whatever so we don't interrupt our proceedings. Want to recognize the media that's here in Plainsman, Performance Radio. You can view this session on the YouTube channel under Huron SD. We are happy to have with us Senator David Wheeler, Representative Kevin Van Diepen, and Representative Lana Greenfield. We will begin with 3 minutes of opening comments by the three of them. Then we will move to questions. I would remind you that we are here to listen to the legislators. With all due respect to what you have to say, I'm going to move you along to get to your question rather than making lengthy statements. As we close our hour, we will go to 2-minute closing statements from each of the legislators. So, to begin with this morning, we'll have opening statements. We're going to begin with Representative Van Diepen. Kevin?
Thank you, Mike. Good morning to everybody. Thanks for coming and be willing to ask questions. We'll try to inform you of what we've done over the last several weeks. Being a new legislator, the last 2 weeks were probably the most challenging thing that I ever got myself into. We had many nights that we were at the Capitol till 9 o'clock. So we go in at 6:30 in the morning, we're there until 9 o'clock. Plenty of work for us to do from trying to get the budget in order. Our appropriations committee is working on that. They bring a lot of questions to us. I see everybody with their library and their South Dakota Public Broadcasting badges on. I will tell you that we had what I would call a heated debate on the floor the other day on the pornography in public libraries and the fact that they want to lock our librarians up. I am adamantly against that. I think they ought to take that out of the bill. If they want to pass a bill on librarians and what's in the library, then they should go work with the school board. I don't feel that that's something that should be decided in the state government. Yesterday we had a long conversation on the new prison facility, and that has now been kicked down the road until Monday, where we get to do it all over again. The most interesting thing I had in the last 2 weeks is we had an equine dentistry bill that came to the Ag and Natural Resources Committee, all about if a regular person should be able to fix their horse's teeth. And I received about 800 emails about equine dentistry. And once it left committee, then it went to the members of the floor, so Representative Greenfield started getting the same emails I did. You all know about the bill that was dropped to the floor from Representative Jensen about defund the Huron School District. That caused quite the stir amongst the three of us. We dealt with that until I think that first night it was 1:30 in the morning when my phone stopped ringing and I stopped talking to different people, and we were back up the next morning trying to get it taken care of. But between the three of us, we took care of that. We made some requests to House leadership. They didn't resolve anything. They took him off the assistant chair position he was in. But we requested he was removed from the Education Committee, and we got turned down. So it was an interesting time. I get a lot of emails from people. If it's from our district, I read them. I may not answer everyone, but I read everyone from here. And if they're from West River and they don't pertain to anything, I usually just skim through them. So with that, I'll let the next one go, but I appreciate everybody being here to listen to us this morning.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Senator Wheeler. David?
Thank you. It's great once again to have an opportunity to talk with you all about what's going on in the legislature. Last week, we had the revenue projection set, which is done by the Joint Appropriations Committee, and they came to so when we have to pass a balanced budget, the first thing you gotta do is figure out how much money we're gonna bring in. We're gonna guess to what a revenue projection is, and then you can set the appropriations accordingly. So the revenue target that was set was $24 million more than what the governor's budget had. It was about $4 million less than what LRC had projected, and so that's part of the work they do, trying to figure out, there's different forecasts. They take Legislative Research Council fiscal analysts, they take BFM fiscal analysts from the governor's office, they take all that information, they try and put it together to figure out what's their best projection on revenue. So the fact that they did project $24 million more than what was in the governor's budget, it does help to provide a little more space for the appropriations process going forward. Obviously, we're just now beginning, I would say, now after that is done, now we're beginning more earnestly the process of deciding what the general fund budget is going to look like. And both houses are kind of going into the process of listing all the general fund requests, all the cuts that were in the governor's budget, and kind of starting to rank and prioritize and discuss which one of those different items. But obviously, SDPB and the state library are on the top of, I believe, all of our lists to not cut. And so those will be things that we rank very highly in terms of what we want to save. But there's a lot of other items that will go into that as we discuss that going forward. And ultimately, those decisions will get made in the next 2 weeks or so, leading up to the final general appropriations bill. So that's just kind of a brief update on where we're at in appropriations. I just want to make sure you all were clear on that. I look forward to your questions on bills.
Thank you. And Representative Greenfield. Lana?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate all of you showing up today. That's very good attendance. It's disheartening when we go to Cracker Barrels and there's about 5 people there. It makes us wonder if people really don't care, or if they've made up their minds, or what's going on. But anyway, and I'm sorry, we were just talking up here. I didn't get the clothing memo today. Everybody was dressed in gray, so here I sit. So, sorry about that. Kevin mentioned about the librarians and the situation that happened there. And with actually the librarians, if they hand out a book and it's got what people consider to be pornographic sections within the book, they could be charged with a felony. That the librarians were added into the criminal code, and I have had a lot of emails on that about jailing librarians. And we think it's funny, but all it takes is one person not to be liked, and somebody looking to find something wrong, and away they go. And of course, I have a former student that is a librarian. She was just sick. She had all of her relatives email me, and she said, I have 60,000 books out in the Meade School District. What am I going to do? I said, well, I try to keep things light. I said, well, when you go to prison, you can take a lot of those books, and you'll have plenty of reading time, so we can call them out a little bit. The things that we are talking about out there right now are things that are necessary. We're talking about the property taxes and trying to figure out, what we can do for the people not to be taxed out of their homes. And that's happening. I'm sure after you've received your tax assessments and your bills, you can see that taxes have gone up considerably. And it just can't keep going. We can't take this anymore. So this is an issue that we need to resolve. The prison, I believe Kevin mentioned the prison, building that, and of course people are really rearing back on that because they're saying it's taxpayer dollars, and it's not. We have our incarceration fund, and then we have other unclaimed property money that we can use. So it might be federal tax dollars, but not state. We also have a bill out there right now. We're trying to figure out how to fund, or I shouldn't say a bill, but we're trying to figure out how to fund some of these priorities. One of the top priorities is the Richmond Lake Dam up there around Aberdeen, because it's crumbling. And you know what happened, some of you remember what happened during the Rapid City flood time. You know, when the dam broke and it flooded out the western part of Rapid City, and it killed several people at that point in time. We don't want that to happen again. So we're taking a look at that. It's dangerous, it needs to be done, or people are gonna end up losing their lives. And I've got a lot of things written down here for you, but I see Lori's given me the old shut up sign, so I'll be done at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We are ready for your questions. If you're going to ask a question, we would ask you to come to the podium, state your name and where you live. We also have the opportunity, if you would rather write your question down, we have some index cards with pens. Raise your hand, they'll get you a card, and you can send your question up that way. I remind you again, we're here to listen to the legislators, so I'm not going to allow speeches. Ma'am, state your name and you're on.
I'm Barb Ladorn. I'm a Huron resident of 60 years. And I want to discuss 1239, which is the criminalization of librarians. And first of all, I want to thank our House members for standing up for libraries on the floor and voting the right way. And I want to ask Senator Wheeler how he would plan to vote on that bill now that it's into the Senate.
Sure.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, no, I'm already working to try and kill this as well as we can here. And so I've already talked to different senators about it. We're just kind of starting that process on our side since it passed the House 2 days ago. I'm working on it. And we're just kind of getting started here, having conversations with senators about what it is. You know, there wasn't a high, not every one of them had heard about it. And so it's one of those things where, a bill on the House side doesn't get a lot of conversation on the Senate side till it gets to us sometimes. And so I think that particular bill will have a higher profile. The librarians have been pretty good about getting their messaging out this session. And so I think they won't have too much problem getting a hold of senators on this one too. Now that it's coming to us. So it hasn't been assigned to committee yet. I've even talked with the President Pro Tem that I think it should be assigned to the committee that I chair, Judiciary, and so we could deal with it there. That hasn't been decided yet. That's kind of the first step to get assigned to a committee, and then. But I'll be working, trying to find a way to defeat it.
Thank you.
Additional comments at all from either one of you?
I think you did a great job.
I think, an explanation for the rest of you. This bill has its birth from people that think that we need to clean up the libraries and keep the obscenities from the children. And I do agree with that, but I think there's a common sense thing that if you've got some kind of what I'd call a racy book, that you could keep it off in a certain section behind your library counter or something and call them reserve books. I don't care what they are, but I don't think we need to make a big kerfluffle out of it.
As everybody probably, if anybody watched the session, I was pretty loud, pretty proud of our librarians standing up against them being jailed for a book that is in their library. Our high school library has anywhere around 17,000 books, and I don't know of anybody that would know exactly what is in 17,000 books. The proponents of this bill, they said, well, they can use AI and search the books for certain words, and when it finally came down to it, I said, well, if you don't want to jail them, why don't you just take it out of the bill? Because if you have the option to jail someone, somewhere somebody's going to jail. And they didn't agree with that. I will tell you that I talk to senators all the time, and I'll keep standing on my soapbox and fighting against not just 1239, but the state library and PBS. Those are things that I think are truly a waste of our time. And I sat in Representative Greenfield's committee the day that 1239 was there. And I was just shocked and appalled at some of the comments that were made from the proponents and members of the committee. And Representative Greenfield runs a really good committee. But some of the people, I don't know if they truly understand that somebody can go to jail for this. And they want to bury their head in the sand and say it won't happen. But in reality, it could happen. And I just can't stand for that. 36 years in law enforcement, I'm not going to jail a librarian. That's something I never thought that I would even have the opportunity to do. So I'll just keep fighting for those things, and hopefully I don't get told I need to calm down on the floor.
Thank you. Yes, sir, come forward.
Okay, you mentioned PBS. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jim Groper from here in South Dakota, and I support the South Dakota Public Broadcasting System, PBS. I understand that there's legislation appropriation in process right now to cut the funding for PBS by $3.6 million. And my questions are, first, what is the status of this proposal as far as what's going on? And secondly, I would like to know if you support this reduction, and if not, will you support any level of funding for this project? And better yet, would you support restoring entire funding back to this if possible? Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to start?
So when you look at funding for South Dakota PBS, I actually met with the PBS people last August, I believe. They came to town and met with me. What most people don't realize is our public state radio system, which is the Highway Patrol or Emergency Services, they share the same tower with PBS. One tower, engineers that share all that. I think that we're doing a disservice to everybody in the state if we cut any of the funding. They should be fully funded at the amount. Currently the bill is in appropriations, and that's not for our committee. I'm on Ag and Natural Resources and Local Government, so I don't get to see exactly what they're planning for this bill, but that's where it's at right now, is in appropriations. And I don't know if it's in joint appropriations or just the House. I would guess joint.
This is gonna be the general budget, so.
Yeah. So we, all we can do is try to influence the representatives and senators that are dealing with this. But I think that it's got strong support from the three of us. It's something that benefits not just District 22, it benefits the entire state. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people that benefit from this program. I understand we're in a tight budget year, but I think that public broadcasting is one of the top priorities. I had to list my priorities. We have a meeting Sunday night back in Pierre, and as I looked through them, I would put public broadcasting and state library in the top 3 of all of my priorities. Stuff that affects so many people. So hopefully that answered most of the questions.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add on to that, excuse me, the background, you think, well, why would they do that? Well, it goes along with the same thing as adding the librarians to the criminal code. There seems to be a harsh call out there that we got to get rid of all of the bad things that are happening. And let's face it, some of the programs on PBS are left-leaning, and people don't like that. But we can't make out the programs anyway. We don't have any say over that. So, but their answer is, well, cut some of the funding and send a message. And I just wanted you to know what the background is of that, so you know why this is all going down the pipe. Thank you.
Any comments?
I think they covered it well here. Yeah, there's no particular bill other than the general appropriations bill. And so, we all support public broadcasting, keeping that, at its current funding. And so, we hope that's the end result.
Thank you. I appreciate your support.
There are a few scattered chairs here. If some of you, especially ladies, would like to come and sit down. Who's going to be next? Right here.
Bill Davis, Sharon. Senator Wheeler. Senate Bill 188, absentee voting.
Yeah, yes, 188. This got out of state affairs to be on the 7th floor, I believe, on Monday. I have been reading over that a few times, studying it. I'm not, at this point, I'm not in favor of this bill. It gets rid of no excuse absentee voting. And requires you to, list an excuse to vote, to do an absentee ballot, which I don't think is necessary. I think if you want to vote ahead of time, I don't think you need to have a vote. There's a debate about, well, we should all vote on election day. Well, I think most people enjoy the ability to choose. If they want to go ahead of time, they can do so. Federal law requires us to have a 45-day period in which what are called UOCAVA voters. So it's military voters or people stationed overseas. And so we have to have our ballots printed 45 days in advance. So they're already done. And so South Dakota right now, okay, well, if your military and overseas voters can do it, we let everybody do it right now. So that's why we have a 45-day absentee ballot period before any general or primary election. And this wants to get rid of the no excuse voting, and it also wants to cut down, the way I read it, you can do your absentee ballot by mail for 45 days, but you can't go to the auditor's office until 15 days ahead of time, which is kind of strange because you can walk in there 30 days ahead of time and you can ask for the form, but they'd have to mail it to you, so you have to go back home to get it, and it just seems strange. So the prime sponsor of this is my seatmate, so I got to sit next to this guy. He's a wonderful man who's very interested in election integrity and very earnest in where he's coming from. But we're going to have a fun debate about this on Monday.
Any comments from either one of you?
Well, I haven't read the bill until just now, but listening to Senator Wheeler's definition of it, I don't know why they would change that. There's a lot of times that I absentee vote because I don't know if I'm going to be available on the day of the election, and I still think I deserve the right to cast my ballot. So if I need an excuse, you're going to make a liar out of somebody because they're going to make an excuse. Oh, I've got a dentist appointment that day, even if you don't. I think that you have the right to vote. If absentee ballots are available, we ought to just leave it as is and let the system work.
I was just thinking when Senator Wheeler was talking about the old-time washing machines, that I am going somewhere with this story. Anyway, remember how they go spin this way and then that way and this way and that way? Well, that's kind of the way it is out in the legislature. We have, and I'm sure Senator Wheeler sees this too over in the Senate, we have a lot of people that profess to be freedom lovers and freedom caucus, unless it doesn't match their narrative. Then they want to tie people up into, a certain period of time for the elections and stuff. So I just kind of find that interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, you're going to get the award for the shortest question here this morning. Tim, you wanted, okay, no, let's go back there. Come on forward, sir.
Thank you. I'm John McNally, born and raised here in South Dakota. And I just had, in her parting remarks, Christine Ohm, with her final speech, she was talking about a 0.5% reduction in sales tax. That was one of the things she was promoting. And I'm wondering, as I understand it, Governor Dugard put that on a number of years back in hopes of maybe being a little bit fair, especially to the teachers of South Dakota, so that they had a steady, vehicle to adjust for inflation, for whatever. At least there was something other than just, what they always have to do every year, which, pass a bill. I get the feeling that this thing is tied to that. I might be wrong, but has there been anything done? Or is there anything, what is the process, and what's the situation on that proposal she had?
Thank you. Who wants to start?
I guess I'll just give you the background again. I know it sounds like I've been there a long time, maybe I laid the last cornerstone at the Capitol or something, but back in 2016, it was brought forth in the way that the man was just saying, Mr. McNally was saying, that we were going to make sure that we added that half-penny sales tax, which was kept under wraps because we wanted it to be the teacher bill and give the teachers raises. But really, all it was to get everybody riled up and get the buy-in to pass the half-penny sales tax. They had no intention of giving teachers huge and ongoing raises. That was not what happened. In fact, it was meant to starve out the small schools and move them toward consolidation because they knew that they couldn't match all of the portions of the bill that were in place. For example, the 12-to-1 ratio, and that will affect small schools. Now, maybe that is a good way. Maybe that is what we need to consolidate the small schools. I don't know. It's gonna be a cycle, I think. But as far as a half-penny sales tax reduction, I don't think that there's been any talk or any appetite for that out in Pierre this year.
Yeah, all of the tax discussions have really centered around property tax this session. There has been there was a proposal to actually increase the sales tax from 4.2 to originally 5%, and then to 4.2 as a way to then use that money to do property tax reduction. And so that has not been successful. I believe that's already died in committee. We have the, it was at 4.5% sales tax. About, I think it was 3 years ago, we lowered it to 4.2. And there was a lot of discussion about, the Wayfair decision and bringing it all the way down to 4, back to the original 4. We repealed all that when we did the 4.2%, but we included 3 years ago, we included a sunset clause on that where not this year, but next year, after 4 years, it will go back up to 4.5 unless we do something with that. And so I know last year there was a bill to repeal the sunset, so it will be permanently 4.2. I expected that there was going to be one this year, but I really haven't heard that conversation, just again because I think all of the focus has been on property tax relief. And so I think honestly, I haven't heard much discussion about sales tax, whether it's going to go back to 4.5, down to 4. And so at this point, I kind of expect it's probably going to stay at 4.2 at this point. I think we'll have at least one more session to figure that out before that sunset hits. And then part of that's all the conversation of the budget and where we're at. And that was why the sunset was originally put on. It's like at that point, 3 years ago, we had a lot of excess money at that point. And we could cut. We had space to cut $100 million out of the budget and return that to taxpayers through lowering the sales tax. But we also knew there were some uncertain times coming up, as all the federal money was kind of coming off, and we wanted to make sure we had plenty of space in our budget to pay teachers and pay Medicaid providers and such. So I expected that conversation to probably be a next year conversation. I guess I just haven't heard much about it this year, and we're kind of far into the game now to start that conversation. But in the legislature, nothing is certain until we adjourn. So.
Kevin, anything to add?
I haven't heard anything on a sales tax change at all. I know that House State Affairs has heard 5 or 6 property tax bills, and I don't believe any of them have passed out of that committee. There was a proposal, a Senate bill from the governor on a property tax revision, and I don't know if that has any traction. But there's nothing I've heard of on a sales tax that's going to change, other than the one bill that had sales tax attached to it. You get a property tax reduction, but the sales tax would go up. So it's really just shifting where the money's coming from. But nothing is being talked about a whole lot.
Just to jump in there quickly, the
Yes.
Senate Bill 216 is the Governor Roden's bill on trying to limit growth in particularly valuation of owner-occupied property. That did pass Senate State Affairs. this week, and so it'll be coming to the floor here this next week.
Just a piece of info, 36% of that money, right at $40 million, was used for property tax relief in 2016. By funneling the money into the school aid formula and relieving property taxes at the local level, the remainder of the money was put into the direct money for schools. You're next, sir. Come on forward.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Schmidt from here in South Dakota, and I have basically two questions, and I'm Mr. Wheeler. You and I have faced off before. As you know, most of all South Dakota, except for one county, voted in favor of defeating RL 21. Now, with that in mind, the people have spoken, all right? Now, are you going to be a representative for the people, or are you going to stick with your Summit Carbon Pipeline? That's question number one.
We're just going to allow you one question, sir. If you have time to get to your second question, we will do that. Thank you. We will address your question.
Okay.
Sure. So the, RL 21 was a referral of Senate Bill 201 that I had voted for last year. People overturned that, just as they have the right to do. That bill was mostly about carbon pipeline regulations and the process of building a carbon pipeline. Eminent domain was not in that bill, and I know that the proponents of RL 21 are the people who opposed that bill and were successful in the referral and the referendum want to make that the ultimate judge on the pipeline project, and that the people spoke, and that therefore we should absolutely kill this project. I, as a legislator, have said from the beginning, said this before, said this last year, said this year, it's not my job as a legislator to stop the pipeline or to build the pipeline. It's my job to make sure that, or to at least do my best to have what I believe is have reasonable regulations in place for any project that comes through. And so the current debate is going to be about eminent domain reform. House Bill 1052 is the main bill on that subject that would take away the ability for eminent domain to be used for a carbon pipeline project. And that is, I believe, will be coming to, where is that at right now? I can look that up just so you can know where that's at in the process. It's sitting in Senate State Affairs, yeah. So it hasn't come out of committee. It will come out of committee and it'll come to the floor. And then we'll have a debate on the floor about it. But I have not been a proponent of that bill because it would remove eminent domain authority from all pipelines, regardless of this particular subject. Whether it's this particular actor, this particular pipeline, I don't believe we necessarily need to change the rules for all pipelines of the subject because people are really, really mad at Summit Carbon Solutions. I know that Summit Carbon has come, when they came out too aggressively, they came out and they just made a lot of people mad. And just because they screwed up in their process doesn't mean we should change it for everybody for all time and rewrite the regulations on something like this. And so I don't believe I should write the law because we don't like one company. So, and so that's where I'm at on that process.
Yesterday in our Commerce and Energy Committee, which I also serve as a member, we had Senate Bill 49, and that was to prohibit the exercise of the right of eminent domain for particularly, the sponsor went particularly for these carbon dioxide pipelines. And it did pass through our committee. I think there was 3 or 4 people probably that cast a nay vote on it. But the person that presented the bill from Mitchell did her best to try to work with some of these other entities so it didn't mean all pipelines, just simply narrowing the focus down to the carbon pipelines. So anyway, that that will now go to the full House floor, and we'll debate on that one.
Okay.
49?
Yep.
I just looked at it and said it was sent to the 41st day.
Yeah, 49.
Oh, wasn't that 149 maybe? Excuse me, I'm sorry. Just to back up a second, just yesterday in the Senate, on the Senate floor, we had Senate Bill 198, which was from Majority Leader Jim Melhoff, to add more property owner rights into the eminent domain process. It would require mediation, require notice, require mediation in advance of starting a condemnation process. It would require that you have your permit from the PUC in place before you begin your condemnation process. And these, everything in that bill was a landowner protection, and it failed because the people who are against the pipeline didn't want to support anything that wasn't a total repeal. And so even though the whole bill was landowner protection, they rather vote against that because they didn't want to vote. They didn't want anything else than a total repeal of eminent domain. I think that was a bad decision. It's up for reconsideration on Monday. So I voted to add more protections to the eminent domain process, so that way you would have more rights in the process, have more lead time, have more ability to work with them, be able to use an independent mediator to negotiate, but that bill still failed.
Short comment, and then we'll move
I need
on.
to correct myself. It was 1249. That was 8-4 passage yesterday, which narrowed the focus for the pipelines down. And so you need to understand, you probably haven't had a lot of mention about this in Beagle County because you have such a small area where the pipeline runs through, but in Spink County, it's a huge issue.
Thank you. Do we have another question from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Louise Van Paul. I'm a resident of Huron, and I'm also the vice president of the Association of South Dakota Museums. And there was House Bill 1263, which would remove our state preservation office and local preservation boards from any input into national historic places. Now, it did die in the House, and I am wondering from Senator Wheeler if there is any chance of this being revived in the Senate, because this is very worrisome for me, that the governor would have sole control of what happens to our national historic sites.
Thank you.
While
Go ahead.
he's looking, ma'am, it died in my House Education Committee yesterday, and I think we had those same questions, like who has the authority? And so we didn't really have an appetite to pass it on to the House floor.
Yeah, first time I'm hearing about the bill. That's one of those times where it's a House bill. I'm not aware of a Senate bill on the subject, and we're past the deadline to introduce. As I said before, it's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. I mean, if it died 12-3 in the House Education Committee, it's dead for this session.
Thank you.
This was one that the city planner here actually emailed me about. So I looked into it. I hadn't heard about the bill until then. We've got our committees that we deal with, and if I focused on everything that Representative Greenfield does, well, I do most of the time, I go to our committees because I don't have one that day. I just didn't go yesterday.
He comes for the entertainment.
Yeah.
We usually have standing room only.
And her committee is definitely a lively group. When I got this and I started asking people questions, it's based on a building down on USD is where it all started from. I didn't follow the whole purpose behind it. Once it dies in a committee, then I just kind of let it move on to where it needs to die at. we don't look to resurrect it. We've got 480 bills we're dealing with, 490. So if we focused on all of them, we would never get anything done. So this one died, it's where it needs to be. If there's a bad bill, it doesn't need to move on. We need to put it to rest and trust the people on that committee.
Thank you. We're ready for another question. Yes, sir. Come on forward.
There's piles of, I'm Ben Chase with our local paper. This actually goes very well off of Kevin's last statement. There have been a few bad bills that have been proposed, and thankfully, we've seen whether it ends up on the floor and it gets defeated, or it ends up in the other chamber and then gets defeated. Those type of bills have been getting defeated this year. Can you guys think of any of those bad bills that may end up hoghoused or reinstituted as we get into the latter part of the session?
I've actually seen a hog house bill that has popped up on our list of bills where they're gonna use it for something else. We've smoked a few out, and I say we, it's just as a house. There are still bad bills that are there, but people are pretty passionate about the bills that they do have. So when they smoke them out, they think that, well, it lost 8-7 in a committee. I want to smoke it out and bring it to the floor, and then they get defeated on the floor. There's other ones that get defeated on the floor. They ask for reconsideration. So we go through the whole process again of why we need to reconsider it. But, you know, there are the hog house bills that people are taking and it loses, so they clear it out, put something else into it, and then we get to deal with it down the road. They are starting to show a little bit. And what they're doing is taking a bad bill and moving it over to another bill number, and we have to try to figure it out. But they're there. We're starting to see them, and the closer we get to the end of the session, I think it's going to happen a little more often, but hopefully not a lot, because we've still got a lot of work to do.
You must have been listening to my committee yesterday. This very thing happened yesterday. And what happened is we had a bill sent through that, or proposed that where college students didn't want to have to live on campus, and they didn't want to have to pay for their meals on campus because they thought that they were going to save so much money as freshmen and sophomores by being able to live off campus. Well, that bill came through the committee and it lost. So yesterday, there was a maneuver where a bill was hog-housed, a dead bill was hog-housed, and this time, I believe what the amendment was going to say is that we would try to pass a law that said they would be able to live on campus for 1 year, but then after that, they didn't have to eat the meals and they didn't have to do this or that. So that was the inception of that idea. I visited with the Board of Regents, and they had a list of people, letters from people that wanted to live off campus and didn't want to eat the food. There was 600 and some of them. The Board of Regents physically went through all of them, and so many of them, those people didn't even exist or they didn't live in our state. And the rest of them, and I was showing these, nobody had signed anything with their, with their handwriting, with names typed in, and a couple of people said, we didn't do that. We don't know anything about our names being on this. So what we did, fast forward, is, the Board of Regents is sitting there in the governor's office, and they're like, and I said, don't worry about it. So we took up this request yesterday, and we passed it. I didn't pass. We passed his ask to look at the proposed amendment. Passed, of course, 8-7. What else? What other number is there in my committee but 8-7? And then the key was, now we got to vote to calendar the bill. I wasn't the least bit worried because that takes a 2/3 vote. And so we're like, okay, it takes a 2/3 vote. Went around, did the roll call, and I said, okay, it lost. Is there a motion to adjourn? And that's how that one went. But, these silly maneuvers are going to be tried at the end. In some cases, they're just time wasters. They don't make sense.
Senator, anything?
I think they got it covered there.
Okay.
I mean,
The term hog house originated more than 80 years ago when during legislative session, the hog barn on SDSU's ag campus burned down. And so they went and got a bill number, and the bill number and the prime sponsor stays the same. Everything else is deleted, and you put new language in the bill, and it's hog housed. And ever since that time, in the early 40s, the term hog house has been used in the legislature. We're ready for another question. Yes? Okay, we'll let you go again. Nope, there's no other hands.
Okay. I wanted to see how much research Mr. Wheeler has done on this. You know, when you research the positive and the negative. Can you explain what happened in Satarsha, Mississippi, when they had a ruptured pipeline?
Thank you, sir.
sure. So, Satarsha, Mississippi, there was a pipeline that was carrying carbon dioxide. It was, to my knowledge, actually a naturally produced carbon dioxide. It included more than carbon dioxide. There was some sulfur. There's some other things in there, and it was being then shipped, piped to I believe, an oil company to be used in a process. I don't know actually all the particular ins and outs of it. And after some heavy rains and flooding, some land underneath the pipeline had washed out, and the pipeline had bowed, and then there was a rupture. And then that caused carbon dioxide to escape and to go over a whole particular area. There were people who went to the hospital. No one died. I don't know necessarily all of the particular or lasting effects of that, but that was a rupture in a pipeline. Yeah, that had some negative health effects for some individuals. I mean, I don't know the statistics on that, but I do know that no one died. I do know that carbon dioxide has been been going through pipelines for 50 years, and in that 50 years, no one's died from a rupture. So I know you're trying to get at the idea of safety on these things, but natural gas pipelines have safety concerns, and oil pipelines have safety concerns. Everything has safety concerns, and you do that through appropriate safety measures and regulations, not through shutting down the whole project.
Another question? Yes, come forward, ma'am.
Hi there, Terry Slack, representing the South Dakota Association of Towns and Townships. You may be aware of 1261. It's going to show up in your committee here shortly. My board of directors has a huge concern with this bill because of its ambiguity. We had found out about this with very short notice. We weren't included in the development of this bill, but yet it affects townships, not just for this moment in time, but for all the future. Essentially with it looking to remove control, essentially, of the townships over the right-of-way, and then yielding it to the county. Now, there is within this bill implications. It's implied townships are getting advance notice. You can enter into a haul road agreement. There are also conflicting things that occur with that. My last point will be that our last two attorneys that we rely upon for our Association of Towns and Townships and our current attorney completely disagrees with the development company's attorney's interpretation of the township roads and rights-of-way law.
Thank you.
So 1261 is coming. It's in the Senate Local Government, so it'll be my committee. I definitely Terry will want to have some more conversation with you
Okay.
on behalf of the townships. I know you reached out to me on this, this last week here. It hasn't been scheduled for committee yet, passed the House, last week. I didn't know anything about this bill until last Monday when we went to some Cracker Barrels in Clark and Redfield. And then there were some people there who talked about it a lot. It was a new concept. I'm still trying to learn about it. I don't quite know what the purpose of the bill for the proponent side is, so I want to hear what they're trying to say. I've heard some of it.
I know.
Oh, I know. Well, I'm gonna get their version too and your version.
Manure hoses.
Yeah,
but
and
it's
it's-
not
yeah.
specific to that.
It's about, from what I understand, yeah, it's about some manure lines running down a township. I mean, what one Representative Rowe from District 4 had talked about a little bit, that there had been a project that already existed, and then somebody moved in and got on the township board just to stop this thing, and then the township changed. And that's the kind of stuff, I need to know those facts better. I don't know all the facts. This is definitely one of those, I'm gonna learn a lot more from you and from the proponents. I've read the bill and I don't understand what it does, and so I got questions about what the terms in it mean. It's just, there's gonna be pros and cons on this thing. I'm gonna have to do a lot more, just because, like I said, I've learned about it the last week. Haven't had a lot of conversation on it from the pro side. I'm definitely gonna hear about it from you. I wanna know more from your side. And I need to learn more about the rights of way laws in townships, because that's a newer concept also, so.
You had the debate just a few days ago. Who wants to go?
I did. And Terry was in Ag and Natural Resources where I was at. And you heard me ask the one specific question. Was it Corey or Cody that I asked the question? Do you remember from Townsend?
Probably our attorney, Cody Curis, or it could have been the opposition, you might have asked the question.
No, it was from Townsend Township, because he came and found me the next day. And I asked one basic question. Can townships create laws or ordinances that would prohibit this? And his answering committee was flat out no. So then that night, I got a call from a Spink County Commissioner. We talked it over. He said, well, here's the statute that says that he can create the laws. Well, then I talked to other attorneys the next day that said they can create laws, but it's not in the rights of way of the properties. So the more I looked at it, I thought, if the townships can't create an ordinance to protect themselves, then it's gonna fall back on the county, which oversees all the townships. And that's why I voted the way I did when I voted to pass it. Because there's so many conflicting things that fall into this statute, the way it is. It looks like, and my hope would be everybody gets together, and that's what we talked about today was there. And when I read the bill, it said a board. It doesn't say a county board, it doesn't say a township board, it says a board. And I would hope that the counties and the townships could create the board that sits together.
It's under the county codified law.
Right,
The board is the county.
okay. But that's, I can't change what I did, I voted for the bill, and that's why I did it, and I tried to explain it when I get the emails. It isn't gonna be right for everybody, I understand that, but based on the attorneys I talked to at the Capitol, that's the way I voted.
I voted no. And in response, my reasoning for voting no against this is that it was very nonspecific. I figured it's a step to try to circumvent the powers of the township. I asked the question, who would end up with the liability, if they're still townships, and nobody seemed to know. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna vote no, because this just has a bad smell to it. And I think that each and every one, yeah, if it's manure lines, I guess I said that kind of unwittingly, but anyway, I just feel that we have our own entities. Why have township boards then, if we're gonna circumvent them? Or why have counties if the state's gonna try to do something with them? Why have county commissioners? It goes on down the line, because obviously in here, we'd like to just get rid of all of these and micromanage everything, and that's too bad. That's too bad. But I'm gonna be very honest. I didn't trust the person that brought it, forward, that did a lot of talking on it. And so I just thought, what are you getting at here? What are you gonna bring next year that's gonna change a couple, 3 words in there and have it be really something we don't want? So for that reason, I voted no.
Thank you. We are close to using up an hour, and we're going to move to closing statements. Give each of the three 2 minutes to wrap up this morning, and we're going to begin with Representative Greenfield.
Okay, I want to thank all of you that have been out at Pier taking part in our process. I know the CSPs have been out there, and I applaud you for your efforts in trying to come out and make us aware of what's going on and the lack of funding thereof, or whatever you've accomplished throughout the year. Much greatly appreciated. You guys worked so hard, you're above and beyond the call of duty. There's a lot of social bills out there. I don't like social bills. They're meant to divide us. They are meant to divide us. They're meant to make statements for certain groups that have scorecards that they do at the end of the year, and then they rate people according to whatever they've cherry-picked as the bills that they want to put forward. And then they publish them, and for the sake of, I guess it's a shaming card, not a scorecard, really. So I don't get into that. One of the good things that we did is we passed House Bill 1042, which was to transfer money over into the Cultural Heritage Fund, the Tourism Fund, so that they can continue with their Cultural Heritage Center out there, and it's wonderful. I got a tour of it, and oh my goodness, it's going to be just so nice. So I was glad that didn't cause a big hoopla on the floor, that the transfer of money there was not threatening to other people. You got to understand that sometimes when people come out and testify, they do it in a very heartfelt way, like the brand board did the other day. And they have problems with the board, and there's cattle that are stolen West River, and they want to get some relief, and this problem has gone on for years. And my son in public lands, school and public lands, has offered to lend them a helping hand. I thought he was crazy. But anyway, that bill passed where this could possibly go over to the School and Public Lands Commission based upon all the cowboys, all the ranchers that showed up and gave their heartfelt plea. We have, let's see, what else was I going to mention to you? There's a bill that's being passed about compulsory attendance in schools. I don't think it's going to get a lot of traction. I thought it was worthy of discussion, so we did pass it out of Education Committee, but you could be watching for that on the floor. I think, I want to say it's 1259, I'm not sure. Senator Roll is a sponsor, one of the sponsors. And I see that I have my time limit card put up, so I just want to humbly thank you all for coming. I want to thank you all for the notes and the support that you have given us. It's very hard when you're not out there to see all sides of the issue before you cast a vote. So if you have a question about a vote that we've made, ask us, and we'll try to explain it as best we can. But again, thank you for coming, and thank you for those that sponsored this today.
Thank you, and we will move to Senator Wheeler.
Thank you. So next Tuesday is crossover day, and so that means all the bills from the House of Origin have to get out of that house. And so Monday is the last day for committees to deal with bills. So that means generally we get a lot of kind of final push, because if you've been holding something, trying to get something done, trying to work something out, it's got to get done by Monday or Tuesday. So you see a lot of action. The Tuesday calendar usually ends up being pretty long, and we spend a lot of time debating those bills. And then the last few weeks are dealt with, those bills that survive one house are now over in the other house. And we continue the process forward. So there'll be a lot of work in the next week. A lot of bills will be coming forward, and a lot of them will be living and dying. And so please always continue to reach out. Always please make sure you put that you live in District 22 in your email, and whether it's Huron or any other town in Beetle County, Spink County, or Clark that we represent. Because as Representative Van Diepen talked about, I do the same thing, where if I see you're from the district, I definitely read through it. I try and respond when we can. But we get a lot of emails from places outside the state, outside our district, and so we try and weed those out as best we can, so we can concentrate on our constituents and making sure we do our best to serve you. So stay in touch, and most of you know how to get a hold of me. You can even call me, text me. My number's in the paper, just like all of ours is, and that's also a way to get a hold of us. So.
Thank you, and Representative Van Diepen.
Well, I want to echo the thank you to everybody that shows up for these, because it lets us know if we are truly doing what the people of our district want. When I see the people wearing the badges, it's kind of like the librarian bill. I've told people that you need to let the senators know that it cleared the House and that you're unhappy about it. If they don't know how strongly everybody feels, they can't fix anything. A lot of times you'll hear Representative Greenfield and I say that we voted different ways on bills, but we truly work together about 95% of the time. And we work with Senator Wheeler. He was over on the Great House floor. He left the Senate and came over to visit the people in the higher chamber. But we work together on a lot of different bills. So if we have a House bill that people are sending us messages on where they're concerned about something, we will find Senator Wheeler and we'll have a discussion. Hey, this is going to clear the House. I think they've got the votes, but it's still a bad bill and everybody in District 22 is against it. So we will go to Senator Wheeler and he'll start working on that side of the chambers, because we've tried, Representative Greenfield and I a lot of times have tried to kill a bill along the way, in committees or on the floor, because we talk every single day about the bills that we have, things that concern District 22. And we work to try to get these people on our side. And I never realized as a freshman legislature how much politicking actually takes place. When you have a bill that clears your committee, if it's Senate Ed or House Ed, because I enjoy going and watching the circus up there. She runs a great committee, but it's still tough. It's a split committee, and we try to work together to say, who can we bring to our side and explain to them the heartfelt emotions of the people in District 22 that want a certain bill to go through or to fail, if it's bad for our district. So then we start talking to people on the House floor, in the hallways, when we're having lunch. Usually we have lunch at our desk in our chambers. You know, we'll have our food sitting on top of our computer because we have to do our work the whole time. But we do it because we care about the people of District 22. I tell everybody that we don't work for the state government. We don't work for the governor. We work for the people of District 22. That's what we're out there to do. So, like I said with the equine bill earlier, I got 500 or 600 messages, but none of them are from here. I got a phone call from one of the veterinarians here, and he asked me to not support the bill. Well, the bill passed through, and I think it's over in the Senate, which will be like the cat bill from last year, or the poultry bill that Senator Wheeler's got me into this year. But I just want to thank everybody for sending us messages, because we want to hear from District 22, the people that we work for. And thank you for showing up today and showing the support and asking these questions.
I just wanted to mention one other thing, and I'm sure that Representative Van Diepen and I both felt the same way. There was a bill that came onto the floor the other day. It was House Bill 1259. And one of the legislators from Aberdeen got up and railed on Huron School and really, really kept mentioning it. And I tried to do a point of order, and I was kind of overruled. And I looked at Representative Van Diepen, and his face was just red, and I felt that way too. And it might have been a bill that we would have voted for, but based on the fact that Huron School was being attacked, so we were like, no, we're not going to vote for it. So that kind of stuff happens too.
Thank you. Let's show our appreciation to our legislators. I'm sure you're all curious whether Representative Van Diepen is going to learn how to float a horse's tooth. That's part of the veterinary of horse dentistry. I have some announcements this morning. Cabin Fever Games is sponsored by the United Way. It's at the Nordby Center. It begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Come out and support a great cause. The Huron Chamber annual meeting, annual celebration is Tuesday, 25th, February 25th. You can get your tickets at the Chamber. This is our second burger battle in Huron. It runs through the months of February. There are 10 restaurants that are serving burgers. Have one or more every week and try some fantastic burgers in Huron. March 7th and 8th, PRCA Rodeo at the Fairgrounds in the Dex Building, March 7th and 8th. The next MX at the Dex will be March 15th. Doors will open at 5 o'clock. Yes, I've got quite a few announcements. March 29th and 30th will be the KOKK Outdoor Show. Our final coffee with these three will be in 2 weeks on March 8th. And lastly, our committee will sponsor election forums if we have contests for school board or for city commission, which the election will be held in April. We will do that sometime on a Saturday morning in mid-March. Stay tuned. I want to thank you all for coming this morning, compliment you on the questions and the courtesy everybody showed today, and have a great day.